I'll start with the award that I think generates the most buzz, and that's the MVP award. And I voted for Asia Wilson, Las Vegas Aces center, Asia Wilson, as my number one selection for that. This was the only award that we actually got to put a whole ballot. So it wasn't just one vote. You actually put 5 names and you ranked them in order. So I had Asia Wilson number one, Napheesa Collier of the Minnesota Lynx for number two, Alyssa Thomas of the Phoenix Mercury, number three, Alicia Gray of the Atlanta Dream for number four, and then I had Kelsey Mitchell of the Indiana Fever for my fifth selection. And really, it ended up coming down to Asia Wilson and Napheesa Collier, even though Alyssa Thomas is kind of a perennial MVP candidate at this point. And she broke so many records, and she was this triple-double machine, and honestly elevated Phoenix to a top 4 seed. I don't want to say single-handedly because there's a lot of players that had great seasons, but she was really the hub on both ends. So she was in consideration for me too, but I ended up doing Asia as my number one selection. And I'll rattle off just like some of my reasoning for that. And I know that some people are going to disagree. And I've honestly, like, I love Napheesa Collier's game. Probably stylistically, I prefer her game. And I also prefer somebody getting an MVP award for the first time. So I try not to root for outcomes, but I definitely found myself at some points throughout the season being like, oh, I'm really excited to see Napheesa get MVP, and I'm excited to vote for her. So I wanted to vote for her at a portion. And obviously, when it comes down to being a voter, you put anything you wanted aside. And I love Asia Wilson too, and I love her game, and I've really, really enjoyed watching her kind of dominate this era of basketball. So it's not like I don't like one of the players, but I think I fall into the human nature of like, okay, this is going to be a first time selection for somebody. Like, she's going to get her award for the first time. Asia already has 3. Like, does she really need one more? Like, that's kind of how my brain was going. And I was like, hold up, like, you can't think about it like that. So I put that aside and I looked into the numbers. And I think the most astounding single statistic that I came across when I put my ballot together, and this included like all the research that I did, was that the Las Vegas Aces were 26.9 points better, 26.9 points when Asia Wilson was on the floor than when she was off of it. So when Asia Wilson's on the floor, the Aces are outscoring opponents by 15.2 points per game. So like they're beating opponents handily, right? When she's on the bench, they're losing by 11.7 points per game. Like, that is just a ridiculous swing. So not only is it the biggest of the MVP candidates, but it's actually like it was the most jarring stat that I came across by far. There's also other statistics that I looked at, like win shares, which is like what portion, how many wins is a player responsible for according to various advanced analytics. She has the highest win shares, 9.5 of any player in the league. She has the highest offensive win shares, 6.2, the highest defensive win shares, 3.3. So she just, when you look at the advanced numbers, I mean, she led the league in scoring and in rebounds and in blocks. So the raw numbers are on her side. And then as far as her impact on the team, it was just massive. And Napheesa also had a massive impact on the Minnesota Lynx. And so I didn't feel like, okay, just because the Aces are really bad when Asia sits, that's not single-handedly going to be the reason that I pick Napheesa as my second pick and Asia as my primary pick. So it wasn't just that. It was a couple different things. It was the fact that Napheesa did end up missing time. And I know a lot of people question, like, should that be a part of your MVP vote? So Napheesa Collier sprained her ankle. It was a brutal moment. It was in a blowout game that I'm sure she and Cheryl Reeve and everybody else wishes she was on the bench at that point. And the good news is she came back and looked great, and she's fully healthy, in the playoffs, and that's the most important thing. But because the MVP race is like there's such a small margin of error, margin of anything, her ending up only playing 33 games, like that's missing. She missed a quarter of the season. And so that didn't disqualify her. And I saw some people say, hey, like, why does that disqualify her? But then you had other players on your ballot who made all WNBA who missed a quarter of the season. It wasn't disqualifying, but it did ultimately come into play when I'm already like the margins are razor thin, right? So I'm already thinking about the fact that Asia Wilson has elevated a cast around her that has really, really struggled without her. So that by definition, that is what it means to be valuable, right? It's to elevate somebody, a team from one place to another. They were not good without her. And then with her, they were really good, right? And so that's one thing that I kind of realized. And it ended up also coming into play the reality that while Napheesa was sitting, Asia puts together this stretch of basketball that was the most dominant stretch of basketball that any player played this season. And the Lynx, did well while Collier was sidelined, which is credit to them, credit to Jessica Shepard, who stepped up beautifully in her absence. But at the same time, A'ja Wilson is putting up these ridiculous numbers, and the Aces don't lose the rest of the year. So literally, like, they do not lose the entire time. And so I didn't only look at that stretch because this is a season-long award. This is not just an award for the last 16 games of the season. But it certainly helped that while Collier is not on not active, A'ja Wilson is putting together these pretty incredible numbers. So it was pretty close to me, honestly. And I think the thing that I had to fight back was any desire that I had to see a narrative unfold, to see a player that I've long really loved. Like, I think Napheesa Collier is my top 5 favorite basketball player as far as just style, and her footwork is just incredible, and just the way that she's so smooth, and just like I really love watching her play. And so it's like I would love to be a part of her winning this award, but that I had to put on the side. And when I started just looking at the numbers and thinking situationally, one player was much more available than the other. Again, not her fault, but is the reality of the season. And then the fact that the Aces ended up finishing with the 2nd seed, it's like if A'ja Wilson had had this monster individual season and then the Aces finished with the 6th seed, I don't think that I mean, that would not have made her my front runner MVP candidate. It would have been a spectacular season. She would have gotten a lot of accolades for it. She would have been in my top 5, but she would not have been my pick for this award. And so I think I ended up just kind of having to think through all of that, and that's what made me end up going with her as my number 1. And Napheesa was number 2, Alyssa Thomas 3, and those were really the 3 players that I heavily considered for MVP.